and especially Linda, of course. So very fortunate today to be joined by Andrew, who has really just started doing the videos about making a murderer. So Andrew, could you tell us a little bit about, when you first actually started watching Making a Murderer? Because it wasn't 3 weeks ago that you first watched Making a Murderer, was it?
No, absolutely not. It was a few years ago, I guess right when it first came out. I watched the first season, and at first it was just something to pass the time with, just to watch and enjoy. And then quickly it became into within my mind, something that concerned me. And then when season 2 came out, I watched all of that, and then I probably watched both of them together 3 or 4 times, and throughout the last few years. But recently, just felt like I should start making videos about it, just to communicate with people that think the same way I do.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I did my very first video, I was only going to do one video. It was purely a case of I felt that by putting stuff on Facebook, I was in a couple of Facebook groups. What would happen is you would put something on Facebook, but there was, it was like it soon got lost in all the other, sort of messages, and then of course it gets down the bottom, and then eventually it just got. So I really wanted to do something that that put on a that I could express my thoughts about what was happening, just in general. I'd had phone conversations with Herman, and I just felt that I wanted to do something,
right,
that was a little bit more permanent, that you could go back to. So it was a case of I did one, and that was going to be it. But then it's like, well, actually, there's so much you need to cover.
Right.
I mean, how many videos have you done now?
I want to say maybe 7 or 8, but you're absolutely right. It's hard. It would be hard to capture all of your thoughts into one video.
Well, yeah.
There's too many aspects to it.
I mean, did you ever find when you're explaining to somebody about Making a Murderer that you've watched it, and if you've got somebody that hasn't watched it, and you're trying to explain to them what it's about?
That's actually how I got started.
Yeah.
With the thought process of doing my first video, I was explaining this to my boss.
Yeah.
At work, and I realized after having somebody that was willing to open their ear to it, and I got talking, I got rolling, I just couldn't stop. And that's when I realized, maybe I should talk about all this in a different setting, and that way I don't talk somebody's ear off. I could just talk and talk and talk, because it's a really intriguing case, with all of the mishaps of the justice system in this case. It's just something that really interests me. And that's kind of how I got started, talking to somebody that had never watched the show before. So.
And I presume you've kind of gone back and watched bits of it again.
Making a Murderer?
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Now I'm to the point where instead of watching everything, I'll go back to certain episodes. Yeah. And, when I'm thinking of things, but my wife, every time she walks through the living room and sees it on TV, she can't believe that I'm sitting there watching it again.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, I exactly the same. I keep watching it because I know that Netflix will just stop. When I stop watching, it'll stop it at that point, and I can go back and watch a bit more of it.
Are they coming out with a season 3?
Well, I cannot imagine that they wouldn't be coming out with a season 3. But I'm I'm of the opinion that when they do come out with a season 3, it's going to be it's going to have that happy ending of Steve and Brendan being released. You know.
Okay.
I'm of that sort of opinion, but you know, I mean, I just can't. I know that we were told after season 1 that season 2 was going to come out after a certain time, and it got put back. But we were well aware of the fact that there was filming going on.
Right.
So at the moment, I haven't heard of any specific filming going on at the moment, because really things haven't progressed
Right.
a huge amount from the end of season 2. We're still waiting for for some sort of movement in the case, I would say. I tell you what I will do though. This StreamYard will only allow me for the next, I think it's about 20 hours, to use their basic program for, as I say, for the next 20 hours, and then I'll be back down to not being able to do any of this. So I thought I'd just share with you a photograph that I uploaded, because yesterday I couldn't upload any photographs. Today it's kind of reset, but as I say, I've only got this 20-hour slot. So I'm going to put this, what we call an overlay, and it's some text that I find rather interesting. I mean, we've both watched Making a Murderer. What would we think of this comment? Kratz recently told a local Fox affiliate that Making a Murderer directors Laura Riccardi and Moira Demos did not allow him to tell his side of the story, a claim they both refute. But Ken Kratz, quote, "I believe there to be 80 to 90% of the physical evidence, the forensic evidence that ties Stephen Avery to this murder, never to have been presented in this documentary," he says. I mean,
80 to 90% of it, huh?
I mean, first of all, I'm thinking, how does he quantify that? He's saying basically, possibly only 10% had been presented. It's like
that. Yeah, that's absurd.
What a load of nonsense, Yep. It's just so typically Kratz. I like the way he put it. I believe that to be 80% of the physical evidence, the forensic evidence. As if as if somehow he's presenting something which is completely different to what anybody else would know about. This is the specialist stuff. We wouldn't expect you to understand it. It's
right.
It's the forensic evidence, but just rest assured, we know what that means, and the filmmakers never.
I mean, it would have all been in the court transcripts, wouldn't it? I mean, if
yeah, I mean that quote was just after Making a Murderer came out, and of course, what the only thing he ever talks about when it first came out was the Hoodlatch DNA.
Right.
That was never mentioned, and it was interesting, wasn't it? Because your latest video was all about touch DNA.
Right. And I actually learned a bunch of things that I didn't know prior to researching that, and I found the Journal of Forensic Research and started reading about touch DNA, and I was surprised at what I learned. But yeah, I made a video on that very late the other night. And the fact that it was tested 6 months after it was supposedly put on there and still had 1.8 nanograms of DNA is ridiculous. Yeah. I mean, it's absurd to think, if it's obviously planted,
Well, yeah. I don't think for one moment they ever swabbed anything inside the engine compartment of the RAV4. I truly believe that it is just a relabeling of a swab. But what's interesting is why just do a swab of the hook latch? There's lots of other parts. I mean, I'll tell you something, right? You mentioned in one of your videos that you've had to work on your truck. Now, I don't know if is that a big sort of Peterbilt, a Mack, or you're referring to like a pickup truck?
Right, just a pickup truck.
But you do some car mechanics.
Yes, sir.
You do some of your own. Believe it or not, and I know I'm a fat old git, but I used to be a qualified mechanic myself.
Yes, sir.
So we both know that there's more to opening a hood, or as we call it in the UK, a bonnet, but there's more to opening a hood than just the hood latch.
Right.
So why didn't they swab?
And Kathleen Zeldin,
everywhere else,
she brought up that in season 2, why wasn't the hood release, the hood prop? And then if they're claiming that he disconnected the cable, you could have tested the bolt that holds the cable to the terminal. You could have tested that for DNA, because he would have been in contact with that for seconds, unscrewing it from the terminal. Yeah. None of which, to my knowledge, or to Kathleen Zellner's knowledge, was swabbed for DNA.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, we will get on to specifically Brendan, obviously, but one of the things that I always like talking to people about is the various theories as to, well, what happened to Teresa? How did she meet her end? Who was responsible for that? Let's go for one of the more bizarre ones that some people have put forward, and that is that Teresa is still alive. I can't criticize anybody that comes to me and says she might still be alive, because I have no evidence whatsoever of her demise. But what we are finding out is more and more very, very strange things about this RAV4.
Right.
And for me, the fact that you've got particularly Mike Holbach with his comment, but also you've got a lot of suspicion about Karen Holbach, the mum. The way she phoned in to say that, my daughter's not been around for 3 days. You've got flatmates and all this. Nobody's phoning in. Nobody's concerned about where she is till 3 days later. Have you had much of a look at the the idea that she did simply disappear and this is all a big hoax?
One of my videos, somebody commented and they suggested just that. They said that they believe that she's still alive. And like you said, I don't know for, a fact one way or the other. There's many different theories. So I always try to keep an open mind. So I started, looking into it. And the lady that they said looks really similar to Teresa in Canada and has a photography studio, a business and everything. She does look strikingly similar. So, I mean, that's not a theory that you can just say, oh, that, there's no way that's possible. I mean, you have to look at all the different theories. I mean, and I looked into it. Like I said, I haven't found much on it other than the links that they provided me to look at. But I think if that was the case, that'd be one of the harder ones that it'd take a lot to find out the truth on that. But as far as her mom, I made a video, and one thing I noticed through watching Making a Murderer is the camera footage of them, the family, wasn't Making a Murderer footage. A lot of that was from unbiased news camera footage. And I thought it was very odd that, matter of fact, I didn't find one scene throughout anywhere in the show that showed the mom with any tears coming down her eyes at all, down her cheeks. And I thought that was very odd.
Yeah. Yeah. The interesting thing about the lady in Canada is, and I have no proof of this whatsoever, apparently there is a discrepancy in the height of what Teresa Halbach was and what this Teresa St. John, or whatever her name is in Canada. She does look as if she could be this, the twin of Teresa. It is not unusual, obviously, for people to have doubles of themselves that are completely unrelated. I mean, if they've gone to the trouble of faking her death to the extent whereby they've got this, second RAV4 and they've set it all up, I can't imagine they would be so unsubtle as to not do something about Teresa Halbach's identity to make it so that it wasn't so easy to come across somebody. It would seem to be sloppy at that sort of end of the cover up. I think if she's still alive, I think it'll be harder to find her than simply going through Facebook and finding somebody with a similar name. I do believe there were connections between her, this Teresa in Canada, and some family members in Wisconsin, and I think that's been the link there.
Okay.
But I have no proof of that whatsoever. I can't say one way or the other. The only thing I think we both agree is that we cannot discount the idea that is a possibility. But of course, when it comes to Caucasians, the white community, it's something like 99% of homicides are committed by
people they know.
The space, yeah. So therefore, for Ryan Hillegas not to have been looked at in any serious way, shape, or form is highly questionable.
Yeah, if I may,
yeah, sure.
The fact that he said in the show that he was not asked to provide an alibi, absolutely blows my mind, because the police, you're supposed to look at everybody, and I would think that an ex-boyfriend would be one of the first people that I would want to look at. Regardless if Stephen Avery was her last appointments, supposedly, or if he was the last one to see her, he wasn't even asked for an alibi. I mean, that's crazy. They didn't want to look for anybody else except Stephen Avery. It's obvious. I still can't believe that they didn't ask him for an alibi, and that he was so involved with the investigation and all the phone calls between him and I want to say it was Uyghur.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, of course, as far as the cops were concerned, they had a very good reason to look at Stephen. 36 million reasons to look at Stephen.
Exactly.
And I must admit, I was a little bit taken aback when it became obvious that there was these bones that were found in the quarry next door, because that then does shift the focus of the what happened to her,
everything that happened on Cut Road,
to next to the salvage yard. So that was the one occasion when you can say, well, maybe there is a connection between Teresa, having been at the salvage yard, disappearing, being found, or parts of her being in the local quarry. And I think I'll let you say who you think are the most suspicious, but I get the impression that most of us do have a huge question mark over, well, who would be your sort of prime suspects at the moment?
In one of my videos, I think, Mr. Paul, if you really look at it, I think that whoever did it, I think it had to be close by. I think that they would have had to, at a minimum, be familiar with the property.
Exactly.
To be able to successfully pull this off. And, I don't want to say any names, but I'll tell you the things that was searched on that computer
Hmm.
in the Dassey home.
Yep.
I mean, that's really disturbing. I mean, some of the things that was searched on there, I mean, that just screams to be looked at, like, I mean,
Absolutely. Yes.
Kathleen brought up in the show. I mean, I would be shocked if the person responsible for searching that wasn't involved in this in some kind of way. I mean, this is the MO,
Yep.
all the things they're searching on that computer. And then, of course, Kratz and them, they very cunningly and sneakily pull, get the disk, the hard drives to the computer. They slip it into where the evidence, to where the defense doesn't really think there's any relevance to those hard drives from the computer. But I think it had to be somebody that was familiar with the property, and I think that whoever was searching for those items on that computer had to be involved. I really don't want to throw out any names,
Yeah.
because I wasn't there. From what doesn't Brendan have 3 brothers?
Yes.
And that's, I don't want to go down that road just out of respect, but obviously the one that everybody that I've heard talk about would be your prime suspect.
Yep.
And
obviously the
police.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a few people within this circle that has access to the property through that back channel, and then knows the property and was able to pull this off. But regardless of who did it, the police definitely planted evidence in this case. I mean, I don't even think that's a question anymore, especially when we're talking about the key and the blood and the RAV4.
Yes, it's and the bones, the bullet, as you say, the DNA, the blood. What I've one of the things I've kind of struggled to think about was the fact that Stephen Avery is about to become very, very rich, very, very wealthy, and whilst he might have made it clear that as far as he was concerned, that was his money, he wasn't going to be sharing it with anybody else. Ultimately, I find it hard to imagine that somebody close to him would have done this simply to prevent him from getting his hands on that money. If somebody really disliked him that much that they would do it purely just to spite him. It's Occam's razor. You look at who's going to benefit the most out of Stephen Avery being arrested, and for me, it's Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department.
Yeah, I mean, it's highly convenient that while like a week before Teresa comes up missing, all of these people are getting deposed in that lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
And then the DA and the sheriffs and Manitowoc County is about to be, in a lot of trouble from this. And then all of a sudden this happens. I mean, it's absurd. And then just the fact that Stephen was that close to getting paid.
Mm-hmm.
Why? I don't understand what would motivate you to do something. No, I know that he didn't do it. I don't think he did, but I'm saying, in their state's theory, I don't see how they would even think a person would that's about to get that much money would risk doing something like this. To me, it just doesn't add up. It's highly convenient for Manitowoc County, the timing of this.
Yeah, I mean the huge problem in this case. One of them was the fact that they handed over the investigation to Calumet County, and corrupt as Dennis Vogel was in prosecuting Stephen Avery in '85, when clearly Dennis Vogel knew about Gregory Allen.
Yep.
you've got Dennis Vogel, but I wonder, does he pale into insignificance alongside Ken Kratz? Because Ken Kratz is one twisted individual.
He really is. I actually tried to reach out to him to come on my channel or to do just through Messenger, because I would like to know, and I think the reason why they don't want to tell us step for step what they think happened is because then you could poke even more holes in their theory of how that crime was committed. But I've yet to really hear from the state the full chain of events that they think unfolded that night. And I think the reason why they don't want to tell you or us is because they don't really have a clue. They just want Stephen Avery to be guilty for it. And that's all they want you to know. I don't think they want to lay out exactly detail what happened.
No, it's what we had was apparently an investigation that whilst Stephen Avery was being held as a suspect, we've got all this supposed evidence dramatically appearing. They suddenly find the bones, and then they find the key. And then it was after the press conference, all of a sudden they'd got this story that they were able to tell everybody that wanted to listen, and just turn anybody that thought. I think the idea was that anybody that had a bit of doubt,
right,
that they could then try and get rid of that doubt by having, by Ken Kratz having the press conference. Now I know that I'm a slightly personal question. I'm probably twice Brendan's age. I suspect you might be nearer Brendan's age.
I'm 32.
There you go. Yeah.
I'm not sure. Well, how old is Brendan currently?
I think he's either 30 or 31.
Okay, so we're close. Yeah. We're close in age.
Yeah. I mean, when you watch, because it was a long time ago that I was 16. When, to be honest, 40 years ago. But when you watch Brendan's confession, what things strike you as being?
I'm gonna tell you, it was. You do not have, and I've said this before in my videos. You do not have to be a trained lawyer, you don't have to be trained in false confessions to watch these confessions and these interviews rather, and realize that he's guessing. I would say 80 to 90% of the stuff he's asking him, that the investigators are asking him, he's just guessing on, and he'll keep guessing and guessing until he gets it right. Mm-hmm. And particularly in that the March interview, what was it, March 1st? Mm-hmm. The March 1st interview, I mean, they asked him, what did he do? What did Stephen do to the head? And he's like, that he hit her. And the investigator, okay, well, what else? And he keeps going. Then obviously he doesn't know the answer. And then when they just get fed up, they say, okay, I'm just going to come out and ask you, who shot him in the head? Who shot her in the head? And then he immediately says, he did. Okay, well, why didn't you tell us that? Because I couldn't think of it. I mean, it's so clear. He doesn't have a clue. It's actually, it's very frustrating to see him sitting there. And you could tell, because I'm an introvert myself. Believe it or not, the fact that I'm on here doing this, shocks me, because I'm kind of an introvert myself. And you can kind of see him, the investigators are sitting there, and he's kind of backed into this corner, with his hands kind of wrapped around him. That's a telltale sign of, fear, like, what would you call it? Not being comfortable in your environment. and they're asking him all these questions, and and not to mention, he doesn't even realize what he is confessing to.
Yep.
And I made some general notes.
Yep.
He asked, when basically, I'm just going to say it in my words. When are we going to wrap this up? Because I got a school project in 6 hours. That's crazy. He doesn't know what he's admitting to.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then if you watch, and many times during that interview, he's yawning,
Yeah.
He just takes these big, deep yawns. He's tired. You can tell he's like ready to go home and take a nap.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then when they tell him that he is going to be arrested at the very end of this, he asks, is it going to be just for one day or something?
Yes.
I mean, they're serious questions. I don't know how you could take anything in that interview seriously. And the fact that the judge in Avery's case basically removed all charges related to that confession that was added, to me, just confirms that confession has no place in the courts.
Yeah. I mean, believe it or not, when I went to college to be a mechanic, I remember I got involved in a little bit of a fisticuffs, and I got suspended from college for a day. And the irony of it is that the fella that also got suspended with me, we're very good mates now, But it's kind of like that. It's like Brendan saying, I'm in trouble. Will it just be for one day?
Yeah.
Can I go back to school the next day?
Yeah.
But of course the thing is that throughout the interviews they're very, very specific about the fact that we know what happened. Yeah. And what they do is they ask him, did something happen? Did this happen? We think this happened, etc., etc. And all that Brendan does is just agree with them. He very rarely comes up with stuff. He doesn't come up with any new stuff himself. In future interviews, then he's able to repeat things that he's repeated to them in the past, in the hope that at some point he's going to strike it lucky by saying something that that they're going to say, well, yeah, that's correct. But he also thinks that they're going to go away and they're going to check. They're going to corroborate what he's just said.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't add up, he's in the clear.
Yeah, one thing I thought was interesting.
Realize. Yeah, sorry.
Yes, one thing I thought was interesting, I noticed, and like I said, I'm still new at this as far as like really diving into these things. Y'all been doing this for a long time, but one thing I thought was interesting was in all of his interviews and statements prior to May 13th, he claims, and every time they asked him, I went home and I played PlayStation. Mm-hmm. Well, I'm a PlayStation, like I said, we're around the same age. I play PlayStation, Call of Duty, or whatever, etc. And one thing that changed in the May 13th interview was that's the only time he claims he didn't play the PlayStation. Mm-hmm. So one of the things, going back to what you said, he was thinking that the investigators would go find out if what he's saying is true or not.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if the police ever contacted PlayStation Network to see if in fact he did play the PlayStation, and it would have told you how long, what day. If he'd have played for an hour and a half, it would have said when he logged in and when he got off of it,
Yeah.
Things like that. I've yet to find any information on those things. Mm-hmm. So
yes, I remember a while back there was quite a talk about that on Facebook, about the fact that you've got these like the memory cards that you put in, and it would have a note of that. I can't remember exactly where we went with that particular line of inquiry. I'm wondering if it was something to do with the fact that it was one of these things where, if for example you leave your PlayStation on, does it register as you playing it even though you're not? I can remember, for example, playing on a game called Gran Turismo. It's the racing car game.
Okay.
And I remember once it was a 24-hour race, and I just left the race to run on some sort of like auto mode, where instead of me being the driver, I was the I was like the team manager,
Okay.
and it was a 24-hour race, like a Le Mans race. But because I'd got a really good car, and like I was winning at the time, I played for about a couple of hours, and I just went to bed. So I'm just wondering if I know what you're saying about the fact that was this checked, because this would be something else that could corroborate. But I just really what I'm saying is I don't know how much of a weight you can put on the could it have been somebody else that was playing the PlayStation? I think it's quite clear that Brendan was basically home by himself, wasn't he? Because Blaine went trick or treating, and there was nobody else there. And he goes across to Steve's to a bonfire, and sees a couple of car seats. As you say, fast forward May, and it's a toe and a stomach and a forehead.
Yeah. Yeah.
And,
That May 13th interview, it changed drastically from what he said in March.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get into that because that'd take forever. But I mean, I started making a list. I started watching that May 13th interview, and just in the first 30 minutes, I mean, I had 2 pages of things I know for a fact changed from that March 1st interview. Yeah. I'm wondering, Mr. Paul, is there any effort in Wisconsin or anywhere in the U.S. that you are aware of that, I don't know what you think, but I think anybody under the age of 18, it should be a law to where they have to be accompanied by a guardian, a parent, or an attorney. Are you aware of any efforts to make that become law? Because I don't think anybody under the age of 18, especially with the disabilities of someone like Brendan, should be able to ever be questioned by investigators without a guardian or a parent.
Well, yes. I mean, it's certainly there's this Brendan Dassey sort of petition along those lines, as far as I can remember. That as you say, to make it legal that you cannot interview somebody under 18 like that.
That's good.
And I think we're finding out, aren't we, with the likes of Netflix and some of the true crime documentaries they're doing, we're finding time and time again that youngsters are being basically set up
for
crimes that they didn't commit. One of the interesting things is that when Steve Drizzen and Laura Nyrider were across in England, they went to and did a show in Birmingham, apparently. And one of the guys that came up to them was actually an investigator with the British police. And he said to them, if Wiegert and Fassbender, if I ever did what Wiegert and Fassbender did, I'd be out of a job.
Yeah.
But it's all in good us in the UK suggesting that we're far better than that. In actual fact, no. There's another case I've been looking at of a 16-year-old that was arrested back in 2003. He's still inside, and it's pretty clear he didn't get a fair trial, and more than likely he has nothing at all to do with his girlfriend's murder. It was simply a case of the press fueling the police to do something about this, about this guy called Luke Mitchell. One thing I was going to say was that I don't know if have you had a chance to check out and see if any of the attorneys are going to be coming to your area at all in the not too distant future.
I have not, but now that you mentioned it, that's because I think isn't Buting and them still doing tours?
Oh yeah. I went back in I'm going to say 2018, beginning of 2018. I went to Edinburgh to see Strang and Buting, and then this time last year I was in Amsterdam to see Jerry Buting and David Rudolph from The Staircase.
Okay.
Then in March, very fortunate to go to Australia for 5 days and got to see again, Steve Drizzen, Laura Nyrider, and David Rudolph again. So I've been I've been very fortunate in being able to see these guys get up and talk. And I would strongly suggest people go and check out when, take any opportunity you can to go and listen to these guys. You can't film.
Okay.
They won't allow you to, with your camera to film.
Yeah.
So I would strongly advise go along with a notepad and paper, paper
Right.
and make notes as you go along, because you will get a lot of information out of them.
It's very strange. I haven't thought of this already. And maybe because I didn't know they were still doing the tours, but I guarantee you, I'm gonna get on there and check. And hopefully, if they're coming to New Orleans or Baton Rouge, I would definitely love to go see that and sit in on one of them.
Yeah. As I say, so I've been to, as I say, Australia. I saw Steve Drizzen and Laura Nyrider in Edinburgh in January of this year. December was when I saw, Jerry and David Rudolph. Actually, David Rudolph, dare I say it, he impresses me as much, if not even more, than the rest of the guys. Now, I noticed Eric Cozy is here. Dude, I sent you the link. Would you care to come and join us? Because he's right here in the chat. There you go. Look at that. So, dude, were you sleeping? Because we knew about this. We both me and Andrew knew about this 3 days ago. What is going on, Mr. Cozy? Get yourself in here ASAP. Well, if he's presentable, we'll let him in, okay?
All right.
If he looks decent, but so yes, definitely go and check out the.
I will.
The opportunity. If one arises of seeing some of these guys, they they are sort of, for want of a better word, they are on the I'm going to say the coal face. They're on the front line.
Right.
They are the ones that deal with your craps type people, on a regular basis. The other thing I was going to mention was that for me, when I first started watching Making a Murderer, it was quite funny because it was actually Robert Herman that told me, the sheriff of Manitowoc, told me about the fact that there were these Facebook support groups. I knew nothing about them. It was Robert Herman that inadvertently mentioned them to me, So
right.
I don't. Have you managed to get onto many of the Facebook support groups?
I'm in a bunch of them for sure. I want to say 6 or 7. I've tried to join all of them that I've seen, but yeah, I'm in a lot of them.
Yeah. The other thing that when I first going on to the YouTube videos, because there were in the Facebook chats, there were mentions of these YouTube videos. So I thought I'll go and find them out. And for me, there were 3 people in particular that stuck out. Actually, there was 4. There was another guy called Lionel Nation. I don't know if you've ever come across any of his videos, but the 3 in particular were Casey Martinez, or Mama Phoenix, that she went by. There was obviously Perplexed QT Laura Keck, and there was the dude himself, and he was the one that I sort of made a point of watching everything I could of his. I'm sure he's done about 600 videos. I will have watched every single one of them. But some of his early stuff where he does a video, for example, a 2-part video about Xander Road. Zander Road is just 4 miles. I believe it's 4 miles north of the salvage yard. It's where Stephen Avery had looked at a house to buy with a view
Okay.
to, spending some money on it. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to look at that one.
I haven't. I just wrote it down though. I'm
Yeah,
making notes of everything you're saying. That way, it
I,
gives me
I,
stuff to look at.
yeah. I mean, you can obviously there's so much stuff out there. It really is it can be mind-boggling at times. Thinking, well, where do you go to? Look at this. Look at this. Where are you, dude? What are you doing? Look at that. Not that one. Well, I agree, Linda. No, sorry, I clicked on the wrong one.
Over
He's done over 700 videos, and that'll be over. I'm going to say at least 2.5, maybe 3 years.
That's a lot of videos.
Yeah, but I mean, his channel is now up to nearly 6,500 subscribers.
Yeah, I seen that.
Yeah. So he is probably the biggest in terms of Make the Murderer channels. One of the things, probably his most embarrassing thing, was that he. I'll give you a bit of background on this, right? Because there's one of the people that I used to regularly bump into on Facebook. Goes by the name of Sinister Smurf in some of her various dealings in social media. When I did my first video, I didn't wear my dicky bow and white shirt and jacket the way that my picture on YouTube is, So Sinister Smurf said to me, "I'm disappointed. Where's the tuxedo?" And I said, "Well, I'll do another video and I will wear my dicky bow as long as Eric Jose," because I knew he'd got a kilt because we'd been chatting on Facebook and he was saying he'd got some Scottish background. I said, "Well, I'll do that if he wears his kilt." So the next video, I deliberately put the bow tie on, and I did that 2 or 3 videos. And the deal was that dude had to do a video in his kilt. Well, he actually did a video, believe it or not, about trying to encourage as many people as possible to do their own videos. This is why we are so thankful. Just 3 weeks ago, you started doing a video.
Right.
We're all on the same level as far as this is concerned. There's not really people up there, and we're all on the same, we're all supporters. We all want truth and justice for Teresa, and I think it's absolutely brilliant that you've popped on the scene. Somebody new, and as I say, a lot younger than me, and also quite a bit younger than the dude,
Right.
And I think it's absolutely brilliant that we've got people coming forward, that have basically have felt so annoyed about what they've seen that, as you say, you're saying you're slightly shy guys at times.
I'm normally
Yeah,
introvert.
exactly. And so to have that passion, if you like, to want to say something
Yep.
in front of a camera that could potentially be listened to by hundreds, thousands of people.
Yeah, you never know.
Exactly. But obviously you did get that sense of, I want to do something about it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Just like I said many a times, there's people that watch the show and they just watch it and that's it. But there's very few people that want to continue to find out and correct, and find out exactly what went wrong. So this was one outlet for me. This was a way for me to get on here originally and just put all my thoughts from my head into something else. And then from there, get together with people like you that think the same way I do, because there's not a lot of people out there that care. Look at this.
I know.
Oh,
He is just something else. He is. Look at that. What on earth is that, dude?
that's the baby from The Incredibles.
Is it? Oh, well, actually, yes. Believe it or not, although I'm some sort of octogenarian geriatric,
Yes,
I have actually watched the Incredibles. I actually quite enjoyed it.
yeah.
Yeah.
I enjoy a lot of those movies, like Shrek, and anyway.
Oh well, Shrek's something else. I mean, Shrek is Shrek. It's the it was a one-off. I'm not a big fan of the follow-ups, but the original Shrek, yeah, absolutely.
I like all the Shreks, man. I think they're all
yeah. So where were you earlier? Did you fall asleep?
Yep.
Yeah.
I had this long weekend.
Yeah.
And what's happening is that all the sleep I usually miss when I'm working and researching late into the night, it seems that I'm catching up this long weekend. So
anyway, sorry. I accept my apologies. Sorry for being so rude. Andrew, dude, Andrew.
How you doing? Nice to meet you.
We have been arguing the toss about various things for nearly 2 years now. Would that be correct, dude?
We've been arguing what now?
Arguing the toss.
The toss?
Yeah. Like,
is that
arguing about
way of saying Captain Crunch?
Anything. We'll argue about anything.
I'll agree with that. You'll argue about anything.
Yeah.
Unless it's Scottish independence. In other words, then with that, you won't touch it with a 10-foot pole. But anything else.
It's like Judge Sukovich. I wouldn't even touch him with yours.
Yeah, right. You wouldn't touch him with mine. Right? Yeah. There you go.
I was just trying to explain as well about the fact that I think it would have been about 2 years ago, was it not, when you did the video trying to promote people to come forward and do a YouTube video.
Years ago, yeah.
And I was just, I don't want to embarrass Andrew, but just to say how pleased we are that there are still people coming forward. People are, to use a well-known expression, people are getting on the train.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Scott Ferris. He would love that. So where's Scott Ferris? He would love that one.
He would, wouldn't he? Yes. Well, I think we would all love that one. Can we go back to this business? And I was going to ask you specifically, dude, but I'm going to let Andrew ask it about the PlayStation. Can you just quickly go through that one again?
I was wondering, in all of Brendan Dassey's interviews and statements that he gave prior to May the 13th, and each and every one, he said that he got home from school and he played the PlayStation for a significant amount of time.
Right.
I was wondering if any of the investigators or anything that you know of, if they, got a hold of PlayStation Network and found out if he did indeed play, or if they was able to confirm that in any way.
That is one thing that I know people have wondered since the first year. There was a lot of people that jumped up and said, "Where's that memory card? That somebody pops up with that memory card, and that's it. We're going to be able to prove when Brendan was using that and when he wasn't." Right. But from what I can tell, that memory card is long gone. It was never looked at. It's just it's sailed off into the wild blue yonder now.
Okay.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. I was also going to wonder. Was it a case? Do we know that Brendan had his own individual PlayStation, or was it something that some of the other brothers would have used?
That's a fair point. You gotta. I mean, well, I guess it becomes a question of who would have played it most. Obviously, he would have been playing it a lot. Blaine was about the same age as him. He probably would have been playing it a lot. Don't know if the older brothers would have been playing it so much. Mm-hmm. Clearly, Bobby was getting into online chat rooms. Yeah. So I don't know, but I got to imagine Brendan and Blaine were probably the ones playing it most.
Yeah.
They were the younger kids.
But we know that Blaine went out. He went on his trick or treating.
Wasn't there that day, right? That's true.
But so I suppose if you could establish that the PlayStation was being played on, unless, as I was explaining to Andrew, could it be that you can leave the PlayStation running? So as far as the PlayStation is concerned, it would.
You could do that, but see what the memory card's going to remember is when you hit save points.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the memory card's going to really remember is hitting save points in a game.
Mm-hmm.
And then at that point, it's going to kind of do a quick snapshot of the time or whatever of what time that happened or whatever. So
see, one of the things I thought about was being that the fact that all that stuff was found on that computer, that tells me if Bobby was in chat rooms, they had to have internet access, right?
Yeah.
So if he had internet access and they were, let's say whoever was playing on the PlayStation, I actually called PlayStation Network earlier. Obviously they're not there today, but I plan on calling them back because I'm curious to see, because if he had internet and as soon as he turned that PlayStation on, it would have automatically logged him in to his account on PlayStation Network, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just curious to see if, that information in particular was ever subpoenaed by the investigator. They're not going to be able to tell me that. But I just want to know if indeed it's possible for them to, provide data to a court, letting you know when a profile was logged into and when it was logged out of. And from what I read on the PlayStation website, that seems to be the case that they can. In the privacy policy, it tells you all the information that they keep and the reasons why they keep it.
Mm-hmm.
Right. My thoughts there are going to be that the Dasseys had, they didn't have the best internet. They had dial up. This you got to imagine. This is back in the days when America Online was still hanging on.
Right.
Yeah. So they were mainly getting their internet through getting some of those cards. America Online cards and things like that, so that they would get a certain amount of hours for free.
I got
you. So I don't know how much time, if that PlayStation was connected to the internet, I don't know how much time it spent connected to the internet.
Okay.
So that would be one of the things that occurs to me right off the top of my head. So.
Yeah, I just thought it was interesting when I realized that in that May 13th interview, he didn't say. That's the only time he said he didn't play. So that just obviously stuck out to me. Well, like, hold on a minute. Any opportunity I have to in my mind that I can prove that Brendan Dassey isn't telling, he doesn't exactly. He's just saying what the investigators want him to say. I'm always looking for that opportunity to poke holes into that.
Right.
Yeah, and I think possibly the investigators tried, to sort of get rid of any evidence like that. If there was a memory card that they were using, it should be there somewhere. So shouldn't it? So the fact that there wasn't any,
you would think,
yeah, it's.
I want to ask y'all a question if I can.
Yeah,
it's kind of off topic as far as what we just talked about, but is there any? I talked to you about a law earlier. You said there was one that they was trying to get passed, but the EDPA that's mentioned in season 2, is there? I mean, from everything I've read about, I just read a few articles last night, and from what I've seen on the show, isn't this something that we should be pushing to get amended or repealed completely?
Would be nice, but that's a tall order.
Yeah.
No, I understand that. I'm just saying, like,
changing a piece of legislation, which is very difficult to even get senators even interested in wanting to do, because it would be a hard fight to tear it down at this point.
Oh, I'm sure it would. I'm just curious how it even passed, because everything I read about it, it takes a lot of your rights away.
Yes, it takes a lot of our rights away as Americans. The reason why it passed is this. It was right at a time when terrorism was just beginning to rear its head. Americans were scared of terrorism and everything. And so the politicians used that and along with grouping in death penalty cases. So they called it the Anti-Terrorism and Effective Death Penalty Act. That's what AEDPA stands for.
Right.
So that's what they were doing. And what they do, and this is what we have to be careful. I want to say this again, because here in America, we're going to have to be careful of this in the future when our politicians try to do stuff like this, because they also did it with something called the Patriot Act. Who could possibly be against the Patriot Act, right? So this is the way they do it. They get us. We get a little bit scared, like we did with terrorism and everything. They put a bill like this up, and what this bill was meant to do was to prevent terrorists and people on death row from being able to just make a mockery out of the system with appeals and all that sort of stuff. Problem is, it got written, and then it went over to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court basically interpreted it as, well, we can't just take away their habeas rights, we have to take away everybody's. And that's when it became the mess that it is now. And you'll hear Bill Clinton say, because he was the biggest champion for it, he'll say that, oh, I didn't mean for it to go that far. I didn't mean for it to rob every single American, but that's what happened.
Right.
And there were people on the Senate floor who knew that was going to happen.
Yep.
They were on the floor arguing, going, look, you are passing this piece of legislation. They knew what the Supreme Court was going to do, a couple people. And they're like, this is going to rob every single American of their habeas rights, not just terrorists and people on death row, by the way, which only make up about 10% of our prison population. So that's what we did. We robbed ourselves of our own habeas rights because politicians wanted to kill 10% of the prison population faster.
Yeah.
We lost our habeas rights. Hope you guys think it was a good trade because, yeah. But it's all based on fear. They get us. It happens when we're all in a fearful state like we were about terrorism. They come up with something like this and they get it through.
Yep. Fear monk. They use fear. They play on our emotions. Yep. You're 100% right.
The
one thing I would point out though is that be
careful about giving away your freedoms, folks. Because you can't exchange freedom for safety. It doesn't work.
I'm not planning on giving away any of my freedoms. I am free to have it as much as I want. But what I would say is that the death penalty is a whole sort of issue. It's a bit like gun ownership. It's it's a huge big topic by itself that I don't want to get into. But apparently the feeling within America is starting to change from the point of view of, do we really want to execute murderers? Because if down the line we find out that we've murdered somebody that was innocent, and it was, as I was mentioning with Chad Keller yesterday, a lot of people don't realize that this guy Alan Lass was suggesting to reintroduce the death penalty into Wisconsin right in the middle of what was going to be Stephen Avery's trial. And the wording was going to be, the reintroduction of the death penalty for people found guilty of murder supported by DNA evidence.
Which included Stephen.
Exactly. But basically this article goes that Kathleen Zellner tweeted about earlier today. It actually goes into the fact that making a murderer has actually made people have a second thought about this and think, well, hold on a sec, should we be executing people? Should we maybe just if they've committed murder, yes, by all means lock them up for the rest of their life.
The stats coming out of the Innocence Project tells us we're probably not getting it right as nearly as much as we think we are.
Absolutely. But you have to start somewhere.
Right.
I thought also, sorry, Andrew, you were going to ask about the basically the Brendan Dassey sort of the thing that Barb started off to try and get it law in Wisconsin that you cannot have somebody under the age of 18 being interrogated without somebody being present. What was the latest on that, dude?
Oh, as far as I know, that's still
that's still an active petition, yeah?
Still trying to go, yeah. They're still trying to get that through.
Again, I'm reminded of Steve Drizzen talking about the fact that, when I'll just explain to Andrew, when SCOTUS refused to look at Brendan's case, I actually sent an email to Steve Drizzen, and I got a wonderful email back from Steve Drizzen saying, how much Brendan needs our support. He said, but, whilst being locked up back then, that was 10 years that he'd been locked up, wasn't it? Or 11 years that he'd been incarcerated?
18. You talking about Stephen Avery the first time?
Well, I'm on about Brendan Dassey,
Brendan. Okay.
Since he was first taken into custody, he'd been in custody, I think it was about 11 years, which was,
in 2017, okay.
Yeah, and what Steve Drizzen said was, that yes, it is a long time, and to Brendan Dassey, it's a long time. He said, but in the grand scheme of things, it can take decades to unravel some of the messes that have been made, but they do unravel, because people come along with new ideas. There's fresh political movements that come along and say, we're not going to stand for this. We're not going to stand for this. You can blag to a 16-year-old and get him to say what the hell you like, and then we can just lock him up for the rest of life. It's I'm not going to accept AEDPA. It's right. Dare I say, it's Andrew's generation that's going to push it on even further.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think that it should be law in every state that anybody under the age of 18 should have to have a guardian, a parent, or a lawyer present if investigators are questioning them, particularly when it involves a felony. Mm-hmm. I mean, the fact that he just allowed to sit there and be, swayed into saying and just basically guessing the entire way about something like that's serious. And then to add to it, the fact that he doesn't even really realize the consequences of what he's saying. I mean, it's just obvious we need some kind of change when it comes to interrogations on minors.
Juvenile interrogations, certainly. I mean, it'd be a rehaul of how we deal with juveniles in our justice system almost completely. So,
yeah.
Because it's just not. It's shocking the amount of times officers, when they can't figure out who did something, grab them the closest kid with mental limitations and feed him a confession. It happens way more than it's basically too much to be just a mere accident.
I do have a certain sympathy for the police, because I do appreciate the fact that when they have got a murder or something happen, there is pressure on them to do something about it. And one of the things that because of my boys club, I've chatted to ex-police, and this is one of the things they say. If you're a detective, you are under huge pressure to get somebody locked up.
Yeah. Well. Yeah.
The problem is, if you just blinker yourself, and I don't think anybody's suggesting for one moment it was simply a case of Wiegert and Fassbender were not just. It was simply the fact that they weren't very good at their job. This was a targeted, frame up of Stephen Avery. But I do have a certain sympathy for the police in trying to deal with what they have to deal with day in, day out. I don't think anybody here would say that we're sort of anti-cop. As I've said many times, it's not like we wake up every morning thinking, what can we do to undermine the police and Wisconsin government?
Right.
Now, I've kept you guys quite a long time. We've now been going for nearly 70 minutes. I think it's time I came to the most important question of all, which is, and I've asked to do this in previous years, and his track record isn't very good. So, Andrew, I've got a $5 that I'm going to put on the Super Bowl. Who should I put it on?
At least it wasn't Captain Crunch.
Oh, come back with that, Mr. Paul.
Yeah, I've got a $5 that I'm going to put on the result of the Super Bowl. Who should I put it on? Who's going to win the Super Bowl?
Okay.
Well,
Well,
do we know who's going to be in it yet?
Well, I no, that's the whole point. Put money on now. Put money on now when the odds are longer.
All right.
You get to win more money, yeah?
There you go. All right.
if I had to tell you just what my mind says, I would tell you put your money on the Patriots. If I tell you what my heart says, I tell you put it on the Saints.
Yeah.
There you go.
Right then, dude. Who are you going to go
Orleans.
for? What? Dude?
Orleans.
Yeah.
I didn't catch a word of that, dude.
Yeah, I know. It's divided by a common language. What are you going to say? You know?
Well, excuse me. Could you repeat what you said, but speak English, boy?
Anyways.
No, who do you think is going to win, dude?
Patriots do look pretty good, but I don't know. They were looking good against weak opponents.
Either the
I don't
Niners
know.
or the Patriots.
I'm going to say the Falcons.
What?
Why not? If you're going for the long shot, try to pick now. Well, no longer.
Is that Hail Mary, is it?
It might be. Then again, I don't know. They've been looking pretty good recently. I don't know. We'll see.
Okay.
It all depends who gets out at playoff time, man. You know.
Okay. So Andrew, Hart says Saints. I mean, they're certainly a they're a strong team. Even the Packers, up until I believe,
They're still good.
They came a little bit unstuck against the 49ers, apparently.
Yep.
Yeah, but the 49ers kind of doing that to everybody. They're probably going to do it to the Saints not this Sunday, but next Sunday.
Right.
They're a really good team, the 49ers.
Yeah.
And yet, I remember it was just a couple of years back. They couldn't buy a win, could they?
Not long ago.
We're dealing with the fallout of Kaepernick, so.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. You know, so you think maybe the glory days of Jerry Rice and I mean, we were just discussing that just a few minutes ago. Rice, Montana, and that could all come back.
That's all 90s. Yeah.
Yeah.
Those guys are geriatric like you now.
Yeah. So who is it you actually support? I know you support the LA Dodgers when it comes to baseball, but who is it you actually support when it comes to
football?
Know
you're such a freaking turd.
I don't. You
I like the Buccaneers is my favorite team.
The Buccaneers.
Yes.
And is that because of some long-standing tradition of theirs?
No. I just like them. I became a Buccaneers fan back in the 2000s when you had Warren Sapp, John Lynch, Derek Brooks. I mean, it was a defensive powerhouse, and I just like the way that they played football.
Okay.
Anyways, I've grown up in Southern California my whole life, so I'm also a Chargers fan. I always tend to root for the Chargers.
That's the LA Chargers.
Now that the stupid Lambs have come back to LA, I've been sort of following them, but I'm still pissed off at them for leaving in the first place. So,
I'm confused. How many teams are there actually in California?
Let's see. You got Oakland and
Oakland.
Four. You got four.
You've got the LA Rams and the LA Raiders.
San Diego Chargers, Oakland Raiders, and San Francisco 49ers.
And the Rams, yeah, four.
Why has California got four when Wisconsin's only got one?
Because Wisconsin is mostly rural. It's mostly a rural place. There's not a high population there. They couldn't fill two stadiums.
Right. Okay.
Every weekend. I'll put it that way.
Same thing with Louisiana. Yeah.
Yeah. And how many? I mean, obviously you've got Chicago there in Illinois. There's no other team in Illinois, is there?
Mm-mm.
Or where is Detroit? Detroit's just
Michigan.
along a bit, isn't it?
Michigan.
It's Michigan.
It is Michigan.
And
Yeah,
then
they got two teams.
and then is it the other side is Minnesota, and they've got the Vikings.
In
And then
baseball,
New York has 3 teams.
So
New York has 3 teams too.
true, yeah.
Jets, Giants, and Bills.
Yeah.
well, Jets is no, wait. Yeah, the Jets, right. Jets, Giants. Well, the Bills is that New York?
Yeah, it's New York.
Huh.
Buffalo.
Yeah. All right. That's like the extreme eastern edge of New York, though, right?
I'm not quite sure. I think Buffalo's in the north, and I think the Jets, I think they kind of consider New Jersey their home, but it's all there. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm still a loss. So you reckon probably put money on the Patriots this time?
If I was betting, I would bet against Belichick.
Actually, that was the other thing I was going to say is watching San Francisco a couple weeks ago. They're looking pretty impressive right now. But like I said, it all depends who's hot at playoff time. Because you almost every year you have one team that's been fucking doing great all season that just suddenly takes a dive in the playoffs, and some team that's been kind of barely holding it together all season suddenly just can't lose. You know, so it's all about playoff time.
Okay, so that's my question dealt with. Okay, so we'll deal with the one that the dude wants to know about, which is the Captain Crunch question.
Oh yeah, I wanted to know.
You did? You didn't? You didn't want to know?
Yeah, come on, get on with it. What more havering do you have here?
Well, Andrew, you're familiar with a breakfast cereal called Captain Crunch?
Yes.
Yeah, is that right, Andrew?
Come back? Are y'all talking to me?
Yeah, sorry. You're familiar with a breakfast cereal called Captain Crunch?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and there is a character called Captain Crunch.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep, an actual character called Captain Horatio Magellan Crunch.
Magellan?
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Are you familiar with this captain? Captain Crunch? Yeah. Would you hazard a guess as to what country he might be from?
England.
Shut up, dude. Does Captain Crunch look as if he could be British?
Just remember what he said the middle name was. Magellan. Just
Yeah.
Oh, Horatio.
If I had to say, I would say England for sure.
I like it.
Well, Andrew, it's been nice knowing you. Bye for now.
All right.
We'll have to send you our little argument where Judge what do we call him? Judge Will Fox.
Will Fox.
Mark Hodnott is Judge Will Fox overseeing the proceedings where him and I argued about Captain Crunch. It's entertaining, so we'll send it over to you.
All right.
The interesting thing is that the Captain Crunch even had his own cartoon series.
Yep.
Yeah, and the voice of Captain Crunch is a guy called Dawes Butler.
Yeah,
who was the voice of Yogi Bear.
Yeah,
Huckleberry Hound, the Jetsons. You know, he's an American icon. Oh well. Anyway, I think there's some collusion going on here.
And like I said, you know, what's his name? From Austin Powers.
Yeah.
He's obviously Canadian, Michael Myers. He's obviously Canadian, yet he wrote An English Spy. So, you know, I'm just going to say that, you know, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. That an American voice artist did the voice for Captain Crunch.
And Shrek is clearly Scottish because he's got a right Scottish accent.
He does have a right Scottish accent, doesn't he?
Yeah.
We got. I don't think I've seen it rain in a Shrek movie yet, so we can hear him say, "It's pissing doon." Anyway, it has been here in California here, so it's been a few days. Oh my God, it's been terrible.
Oh right.
Well, I actually like the rain because I don't get to see it that much, but it's been pretty wild.
Oh, well, wait until you get the snow. That's when it gets.
This
Really...
is another day in Scotland, but you know.
Yeah. I don't think you get too much rain in Albany.
We get rain like once every 8 months. We get it for like maybe 2 hours one day, and then it goes away again for 8 months. We're a desert.
Yeah. Is that the same in Albany?
We get a pretty good bit of rain in Louisiana. It's typically hot and humid.
Right. Yeah. Louisiana. Is that anywhere near like what we would call Cajun country?
Cajun.
Oh yeah, I'm right in the heart of it. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Gumbo,
Clifton Shania.
Oh,
alligator gumbo
fish.
Yeah.
We put Tony's on everything down here. They got Tony's sachet seasoning. Yeah, we put that on everything.
Right.
Great stuff.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I'm going to say cheerio because, yes, as Linda, I like Linda's, the Captain Crunch.
It's a coming to rights passage.
Yeah. I'm just gonna hide that one. There we go. As I say, it's been an absolute pleasure having you guys on. I suppose dude, you've been going for so long now on the YouTube videos. Andrew's just starting up, but Andrew is exactly what we were calling out for. 2 years ago. Was it 2 years? 2.5 years ago?
We've had a lot more since MA. We got Linda now running her channel, building up her channel. We've even got, Denise Rainey over there who is varied in her content, but she's, very much into true crime and, some other things.
Fenn and Julie and the 80 More Things.
Yeah, we got Fenn and Julie with the 80 More Things podcast. You've got even now the Rubber Duckies and the Millbillies that are now coming up and coming into their own. I mean, so a lot of people are starting to use their voice. So that was what I was looking for originally. And so I'm very gratified to see it happening. Yep.
And anything we can do to try and help promote guys coming forward, such as Andrew, then that's really something to be to sort of put weight behind, isn't it, dude?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So anyway, Andrew, I apologize to your wife for keeping you for so long, and
that's fine. It's been an honor being on here with you guys, man.
Well, it's been brilliant having you on, and
good to meet you.
Yes, sir.
If I might be so bold as to ask, would you consider coming back on again at some time?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely brilliant. Oh, thank you very much. I have to. You see that guy down there? I have to drag him tooth and nail to try and get onto my channel. But
yeah.
Yeah, I see that. He showed up an hour late.
So many times. You're gonna have trouble pushing that one.
Yeah. Notice I've got my name right this time.
Yeah, I can tell. See, you learned, right? You went and checked my video that I made for Linda Kay, didn't you? Anyways.
Anyway, listen, we're going to wind it up there, and because it is just gone midnight, and I'm going to go and watch some of the live cricket. Are you familiar with cricket?
I'm not.
It's like in England.
Okay.
I've got something for you to read, dude. Just to finish up, okay? So I'm just going to put that there, and you can read it out to us, okay?
Yeah, ladies, like ladies footy ball.
No, no, that is our. To be honest, Andrew, that is our number one favorite sport. You can stuff your American football. Aussie rules football played by women. That takes some beating, I tell you. Cricket.
I liked it. It was fun.
Cricket is even better. So here we go. Here's the dude to explain the rules of cricket.
The ins and outs of cricket. All right. You have two sides, one out in the field and one in. From the field, I'm assuming there. Okay.
Don't assume anything. Just read it.
each man that's in the side that's in goes out, and when he's out, he comes in. The next man goes in until he's out. When they are all out, that the side that's out comes in, and the side that's been in goes out and tries to get out those coming in. Oh, tries to get out those coming in. Sometimes you get men still in and not out. When both sides have been in and out, including the not outs, the winner is declared, and there is one.
If there is one.
Oh, if there is one, how's that? Okay, yeah, that's not
Okay.
complicated at all.
Hopefully that's made it clear now to Andrew the rules of cricket. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very clear.
I feel like I'm further away from understanding it now than I was before I started reading that.
Right.
Anyway.
Right. Andrew, could you say it's goodbye from me?
Come back.
If you could say it's goodbye from me.
All right, it's goodbye for me,
dude.
And it's goodbye from him.
And it's goodbye from him. Bye, everybody.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Y'all have a good one.